How are you all doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi, and welcome to my Wrath Hunter's Essential Guide / Hunter Primer. I really enjoyed doing the TBC version of this video way back, so let's do the Wrath one. I want to cover everything you need to be a good hunter in Wrath. What you need being the essentials. We're not getting into that super deep, wet hunter theory crafting crevice in this video. Here's what we are going to cover. Our new skills, skills that changed bigly, talents, glyphs, and rotations for each spec, pet talents, stats, consumes, and professions. Here's what we're not going to be covering. PvP. If I get back into PvP, I would cover that in its own video, and it's pretty likely I will. I've been really enjoying it in the pre-patch. Pets. Already covered them in another video. We don't really need to go over that again. Alright, first up is new skills. Kill shot at 71. This is our ranged execute, but it's actually a bit better than it sounds. It's a lot of damage. And once glyphed, the cooldown goes down to 9 seconds. It really does become one of our core abilities. Aspect of the Dragon Hawk at 74. When a monkey and a hawk love each other very, very much. You get a Dragon Hawk apparently because it is the effects of aspect of the monkey and aspect of the hawk combined with higher stats than both. You'll be in this a lot. This is our new default stance. The animation is super lazy. It's just hawk and monkey at the same time. That is weak. Master's Call at 75. Your pet runs to you and removes all roots / snares and makes you immune to them for 4 seconds. It does the same effect for the pet, but they have to be able to run to you. If there's no path, they can't do it, but it's honestly pretty lenient about that. Call stabled pet at 80. Yeah, weirdly 5 levels of nothing. We already covered this in the pet video, but this lets you swap pets out of your stable from anywhere once every 5 minutes. Freezing arrow also at 80. Kind of the beginning of trap launching here. This is basically the same as it is on retail. Your freezing trap becomes usable at range instead of dropping it in front of you. Incredibly useful and makes ceasing so much easier as a hunter. Now you don't have to do it, but I actually like to macro freezing arrow like this and then stop using freezing trap entirely. If I hit the key, it works as normal and I can place freezing arrow wherever I want. If I shift hit the key, it drops the trap directly under my feet instead of in front of me. I find this a lot easier to use when moving compared to normal freezing trap because I know exactly where it's going to be directly under me. Skills that changed a lot. Auto shot. Auto shot can now happen while casting. Only thing that stops it is moving. You still have to stop moving to auto shot. MD, now only a 30-second cooldown, but it's not next 3 attacks. It's next attack, then 4 seconds after that, all attacks get redirected. Distracting shot, now just a ranged taunt. It's weird, but actually opens up some interesting uses for ping-ponging mobs around. Disengage finally gets its jump back ability, but it's really short and you have to be in combat. My recommendation is to always jump when you do it. And if you're an engineer, you can macro it to your parachute cloak and see if you like that. Volley, still a channeled AoE, but now a really good one, really good. This is our main AoE, it's been improved massively. Viper, aspect of the Viper has changed a lot. So much so that it's going to get its own section. Talents, glyphs, and rotations. Marksman. In most cases, Marksman is our go-to for raiding and PvP. Here's my recommendation for Marksman raid spec. This may look slightly different than other recommendations you've seen, but in pre-raid gear, in my opinion, this is the way to go. So I'll explain something. TS Aura. You don't need to put a point into that if this spec is only for 25-man raids. Very likely you'll have someone else there for the buff, be it a Blood DK, Enhanced Shaman, or another hunter. Now we have quite a few talents here where the differences between them is very small. focused aim, improved arcane shot, improved steady shot, and survival instincts. Out of these talents, you can move points around, and your actual DPS, at least in pre-bis, will basically not change. Take a point out of survival instincts and put it into focused aim because you have low hit, that's fine. Have a ton of hit, take all points out of it and put them into improved arcane shot, that is also fine. The only one I wouldn't put any into is improved steady shot, but that will likely change once we get better gear. Rapid killing is also really hit or miss, usually miss. We already have readiness to give us a second rapid fire. If this talent gives you an extra rapid fire during a fight, that is helpful. If the fight is short enough that it doesn't give you another one, it's completely wasted. So I generally skip it. If you have another hunter in the raid to do imp mark, you can drop those points and almost certainly the TS aura point too. Then I would actually spec this, which is probably not a spec you've seen anywhere else, but in pre-bis gear, this actually sims really well, as long as your pet isn't getting demolished, which it shouldn't. This is the play. For glyphs, we don't have a lot of choices. Serpent Sting is a must. This increases the damage on Chimera Shot. Steady Shot, also a must. Third slot, okay, there's some variation here. I would definitely go Kill Shot, but Explosive Trap is also good. Obviously, it will do more for an AoE or cleave situation, but Explosive Trap is really good in single target fights. If you know the fights really well and they're going to be getting a lot of explosive traps down, go for it. There's also the potential to spec for Trap Mastery, but at that point we're getting into that deep wet Hunter Theory crafting crevice, so we'll save that for another video. Generally, you want Kill Shot. Or you can take Glyph of True Shot Aura, but this is a very boring glyph. Numbers wise, it's only very slightly behind Kill Shot, but I'd usually go Kill Shot. The minor glyphs don't matter as much. I would say get Feign Death and Mend Pet. The third can be whatever. Alright, the Marksman rotation. Well, it's not really a rotation anymore. We're on a priority system now for all specs, pretty much. I find this less interesting than TBC. I loved TBC Hunter rotation. It was challenging, had a lot going on, really dynamic. It was pretty fun to me. But this is still pretty fun too. Except for the very first part. So the first thing you need to do is check what you are tracking. Yeah, this is fucking stupid. I hate it. The dumbest thing we have to deal with as hunters in Wrath. Hunter Jesus was off in fucking Narnia, getting hammered, banging wardrobes and shit while Blizz was doing some of the Wrath Hunter designs, because this is stupid. Improved tracking. This means we get a flat 5% damage, not for pets though, as long as we are using the right tracking. I'm not sure if it's possible, but if somebody could make a weak aura that would check what type of mob we're attacking and tell us if we need to change our tracking to match the mob type, just make sure what you're tracking is what you're hitting before you start the fight. Okay, worst part of the rotation over. Nice. Second part, obviously, Hunter's Mark. Next, your first hit is always Serpent Sting. It's very important Serpent Sting is up. It will do a decent amount of damage. You don't have to refresh it, just put it up once. Then Chimera Shot. That's our hardest hitting ability. Aimed Shot. Now this is instant, but it shares a cooldown with multi-shot. Arcane Shot, also still instant, does a decent amount of damage. Finally, Steady Shot. And we continue to spam Steady Shot until Chimera is about to come off cooldown. Then we repeat starting from Chimera Shot. Only exception is when the mob is less than 20%. Then Kill Shot jumps to the top of the priority list. So this is what the rotation will usually look like. It's pretty simple. Once tracking and mark are squared away, Serpent, Chimera, Aimed, Arcane, Steady, 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 repeat from Chimera. Now, I do have to mention Silencing Shot. A lot of people say macro this into all of your abilities. That's dumb. Don't do that. Silencing Shot is one button every 20 seconds. We have an easy rotation. You can hit one more button every 20 seconds. Off the global cooldown so you can hit it pretty much whenever. There's also times where you just need a silence or an interrupt. Yes, it does also interrupt for NPCs only though. Especially in dungeons, but even in raids sometimes. So you'd have to swap all of your macro abilities out when you might need it. That's just dumb. Kill command on the other hand, there's no real problems macroing that into something else. I do it. It's a 1 minute cooldown, so it's not going to blow out your mana, and it lasts 30 seconds, so it won't get wasted if the pet is rooted or something. Overall, it's pretty easy, especially compared to TBC, but still, it's grown on me a lot over the pre-patch and my time on the beta, and I do enjoy it quite a bit now. Beast Mastery. Unlike Marks, there's not a lot of play in the BM talents, for PvE anyway. I would go with this. 53 points in BM gives you all of the DPS talents in BM. Frenzy lasts 8 seconds. My testing on the beta, I've been fine with only 3 points. You don't have aim shot with this spec. Sounds weird, I know, but it will actually work out just fine. Max rank aim shot and max rank multi do the same amount of damage. Multi just costs a little more mana, and you do still have to stop moving to cast it. It's got that 0.5 second cast time. If you find that super irritating, you can drop a point in Cobra Strikes and grab aim shot, but it is a loss. I do take it if I'm leveling as BM, usually at 71 since, well, you move around a lot while leveling. For Glyphs, Bestial Wrath, this is a nice glyph. Bestial Wrath was nerfed compared to TBC from 18 seconds to 10 seconds, but with this glyph and new talents, we use Bestial Wrath a lot more often. Other two are same as Marksman. Servant Sting and Steady Shot. If you really want to, you can drop Steady Shot glyph for Kill Shot, and it's a very small DPS loss in most cases and a small gain under specific circumstances, but I wouldn't bother. Minor glyphs are also the same as Marksman. Feign Death and Mend Pet. I would say Revive Pet might be more important as BM. You're going to want to get that pet back up quick if it dies. But Possess Strength would be fun. Now, the BM single target rotation is just really easy. Set your tracking right, Hunter's Mark, get the pet in. Then Serpent Sting, Multi-Shot, Arcane Shot, Steady. And steady until Arcane or Multi comes back up. Kill Shot becomes top priority when mobs less than 20%. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it for me is keep Serpent Sting up and keep everything else on cooldown. Steady Shot until something comes off cooldown. It's a prio system and it's pretty damn simple. Survival. I won't lie to you guys here, I just don't find survival fun in Wrath. You look at the talents and it seems fun. I remember enjoying it in original Wrath, and it can even be really good DPS, but on the beta and the pre-patch, I've played it, and I just didn't enjoy it. I'll share with you everything I've learned in my testing, but you'll have to forgive me if my enthusiasm just isn't here for this section. Alright, let's talk about serve builds. Oh, Jesus Christ. Alright, we're running into problems already here. So this right here is the most damage. I could not come up with anything better, but it's not very mana efficient. It drops a lot of the mana talents. Would that be a problem though? I have no idea. It depends on your raid comp, it depends on how long the fights are for you, depends on your crit, since you do keep Thrill of the Hunt. If you need to move some points back into mana saving talents, this is probably the way to go. If you need to move hit talents around, a hunting party is usually the way to go, since you can't pull them out of survival instincts. Similar to BM, you can drop aim shot and use multi-shot. I probably wouldn't do that though, as I do find myself moving around a lot more as serve than BM. And I like to not have to stop to multi, but you can get away with multi if you want. Honestly, this just scratches the surface of serve specs. You can change a lot of little things here that, depending on the situation, could be DPS gains. Glyphs for survival, explosive shot. This is pretty decent. Then Serpent Sting and Kill Shot. Unless you're actually going to go hard on serve, then I would potentially drop Kill Shot or Serpent Sting for Explosive Trap. And the serve rotation, on paper, serve rotation is very similar to Marksman and pretty easy. It's a priority system, tracking in Hunter's Mark. Start with Explosive, then Servant Sting, then Black Arrow, then Aimed. Steady, like all other specs, is your filler until things come back up. Kill shot again becomes top priority at 20%. But you also have Lock and Load. Now this is actually really fun. When Lock and Load procs, you have back-to-back explosive shots. But don't just spam it. Let the dot for the first explosive roll all the way out before the second one. The dot part of explosive is actually a lot of its damage. So when Lock and Load procs, you will have time to cast other things in between those explosive shots. Okay, so you're probably like, Bigbobbedboi, I don't get why you don't like Serve. This seems fun. Well, that stuff is fun. And if you just play it like that, using Black Arrow, it is a lot of fun. Because of procs and the duration of skills, things don't line up perfectly neat, so it can feel weird at first, but it's not bad, and you do get used to it. I would recommend setting up some kind of weak aura to watch for Lock and Load procs though. I didn't have one on the beta, and that made it really easy to miss Lock and Load procs. Now, here's where my frustration with survival comes into play. The spec is completely at odds with itself. Black Arrow sucks. Black Arrow is meant to be used only when you can't get in the drop an explosive trap, because it's a lot less damage than explosive. Especially with the Glyph and any potential AoE there. It has a 6% damage buff on it, but it's just not enough to overcome explosive trap. Okay, so you want to run in and drop traps on cooldown instead of Black Arrow. That sounds cool. Yeah, except this sucks. Dropping a trap on a boss and having it actually go off is extremely inconsistent. You basically have to know the point where it will proc for each boss specifically, contrary to what a normal hunter Jesus-fearing individual would think. It seems like it's actually easier to pop traps on smaller bosses, not larger ones. I literally dropped one on top of Kill Jaden in a pre-patch Sunwell. It was on his model, and it would not pop. If you waste a trap, that's a huge amount of DPS gone, not only from the trap damage, but also proccing Lock and Load. Remember, traps share a cooldown with Black Arrow. And the actual point where you can feel Blizzard punching all hunters squarely in the nuts is sniper training. The hunter spec that needs to move around more than any other gets a talent that buffs your damage when you stand still. That is asinine. It's like you're incentivized to use Black Arrow even though it's less damage, and that doesn't even get into dropping frost traps to proc Lock and Loads. Look, the damage potential is still there for survival, it just doesn't feel nearly as good to play as it should. But if you enjoy it, do it, I don't care. Ride the Viper. Aspect of the Viper has changed a lot, and now cuts your damage in half. Or does it? Okay, yes it does. This is weird. So the tooltip is right. It does reduce the damage done on everything you do. Even dots, even traps, everything. But it's weird. When I tested this out, I never got a flat 50% damage reduction. So I assume there's something going on with the way abilities scale, but it's still a massive amount. I think the least amount I got was 40%, and that wasn't with the BM talent. The character sheet shows your weapon damage specifically being cut in half. So things that don't use weapon damage you'd think wouldn't be affected, like Servant Sting, but they are affected. Remember, stuff does snapshot in Wrath. So if you put up Serpent Sting while an aspect of the Dragonhawk and then switch to Viper, you get the full damage of Serpent Sting for the full duration. But if you do it the reverse, you put Serpent Sting up while in Viper, then switch to Dragonhawk, the whole duration is going to be reduced. Okay, so Viper cuts our damage by a shitload now. That sucks. How do we actually get the most out of it? First thing, if there's downtime during a fight, like waiting for mobs to spawn, phase change, as long as you're in Viper for 3 seconds, you'll get mana back from it. You also get mana back for attacking while in Viper, but it's not based on damage done, based on weapon speed for some reason. Volley doesn't restore mana at all. Does not trigger Viper in any way. Multi-shot does work, but only the once. The good news is, the damage in our rotation, at least as Marksman, is pretty heavily front-loaded. Chimera shot is usually more of your damage than steady shot, and you do 3 times as many steady shots. So I like to do what I call Ride the Viper, which is only running Viper while on the steady shot part of our rotation. This is very easy to do and doesn't mess up our rotation because Aspect of the Viper is off the global cooldown and costs 0 mana to swap into. That looks like this. Obviously, you don't need to do this at 80% mana, more like around 15% to 20% mana, depending on your gear. At level 80, Chimera is 454 mana, Aimed is 403, and Arcane is 252. That's 1009 mana. At level 80 and not quite Prebis, I have 10.4k mana. So around 15% is a good time to start thinking about Viper. This is the best way I have come up with to use Viper. And just to make this clear in case anyone was confused, we don't want to use Viper at all. Going into Viper is a DPS loss. If we have raid buffs, don't have a lot of AoE, or have super long fights, we should be able to go a lot of fights without ever having to use it. This is just if we do have to use it. AoE Rotation. People like to make a big deal out of the AoE rotation for some reason. It's pretty simple. Can you put an explosive trap down before the pool? If yes, do so. Are you close to the mobs? If yes, put down explosive. If not, start volleying. And that's it. You just volley. And put explosive trap down if it doesn't have you running all over the place. If there's a ton of AoEing, like sustained AoE, and you run some people like to say use Viper Sting and Chimera. I have not had great luck with that. The mana return isn't that big of a deal, and you don't get mana returned when you first cast Viper. What I do is go into Viper, Multi-Shot, Arcane Shot, Chimera Shot, then go back into Dragonhawk and start volleying again. That should give you enough mana to do 1 volley, 2 if you have the raid buffs. And final thing, the actual affected area for volley is slightly larger than the little reticle you put down, but only slightly. Melee Weaving. Melee Weaving is completely dead, confirmed by Blizz, and I tested it. While this does suck a little bit, we were compensated with a better auto shot. And now Trap Weaving is a thing, so yeah, it's dead. Quit asking about it. Trap Weaving is irritating, but if there's enough interest in that in the spec, we can talk about it in another video, I guess. Cooldowns. We have a lot more cooldowns now, but honestly, there's not a lot to say about them. I do still recommend putting everything into a macro like this so you can pop them all at once. Depending on your spec, some will line up again, like Rapid Fire and Call of the Wild. Yeah, don't leave Call of the Wild on autocast. Readiness doesn't reset the cooldown on Call of the Wild, unfortunately, so any subsequent Call of the Wilds will be misaligned. Also, try to use Readiness after you've already launched a Chimera, Aimed, and Arcane combo, so you can do that again immediately instead of going into the steadies. Pet Talents. Pet Talents are easy as shit in Wrath, at least for PvE DPS. There are some cool builds for PvP, but PvE, it's this. And there's really no reason to move any points out of this. If you're BM, you do get more points, and they go here. Although, you don't have to take charge and put that somewhere else. I just kind of like having it. Tenacity and Cunning Trees don't really matter. We're not going to use any of those pets for raids or even really dungeons. Wolf is so far and away the best pet for DPS, it's insane. Stats/gems. Alright, let's talk about our stats real quick. I'm going to give a stat priority here, but listen. It's not static. Think of this as a guide, not 2 tablets handed down to me by Hunter Moses. Most important stat is hit. We need 8%. You can use the hit talent, you can get it from gear, you can even gem it, or be a Draenei. This is totally fine. If you get a big eye level upgrade but it has no hit, put hit gems in other slots. That's worth it. After that, our best stat is, obviously, agility. As it should be, as it has always been. Then, shit gets really complicated real quick. Is ARP the next best stat, or is crit the next best stat? As I said, these stats are somewhat fluid, but ARP should be the next best stat. But Wrath ARP is not the same as TBC ARP. Here's part of a Ghostcrawler quote from Original Wrath. We didn't want armor penetration rating to be too powerful against low armor targets like it had been in BC. We also didn't want armor penetration rating to be too powerful against high armor targets, so we decided on a system where there is a cap on how much armor the armor penetration rating can be applied to. Then he went on with formulas and shit, and I am way too deep in this bourbon to do any math right now. But basically, RPen is really good, even though it's not the same as it was in TBC. There is an RPen cap. We are nowhere close to hitting that right now. I think it's somewhere around 1400. Usually RPen will be above crit, but not always. Both are good stats. The good thing is, there's just not a lot of RPen in phase 1, so we can worry about this later. The next best stat is Intellect. Yeah, people seem really confused on this for some reason. Intellect is not a dump stat in Wrath. It's not our top stat, but it is good. 100% of our intellect gets converted into ranged attack power. Yeah, that is fucking awesome. And instantly makes 1 intellect equal to 1 ranged attack power. Except it gets even better. Intellect also increases our maximum mana pool. That gives us more mana to cast, but Viper replenishes mana based on total mana. And so do a few other raid buffs like the one from Hunting Party. So Int gives us ranged attack power, more mana, and more mana regen. It's a good stat. Then we get to attack power. It's just attack power. Pretty simple. And finally, haste. Yeah, haste turns into trash for hunters in Wrath. We're not spamming steady shots between autos now, so it's basically a buff to our auto shots, which is nice, but not nearly as good as any other stat. Every time I look at my DST, honestly I shed a tear. Consumables. Actually, these are very, very simple in Wrath. You can run 2 elixirs like we did in TBC, but it's really not worth it. They're just not that good. Grab a flask of Endless Rage. That is very clearly the best option. For food, we want Blackened Dragon Fin. Party Rhino is also good, but in pre-best level of gear, Blackened Dragon Fin is better. And our pets want Spiced Mammoth Treats. DPS potions, they kind of suck. There's Potion of Speed, but again, haste isn't that good for us. If you're having heavy mana problems in a fight for some reason, like a bad raid comp, using a mana pot and avoiding Viper is probably better than a Potion of Speed. If not, then Potion of Speed is a small DPS increase. Try to stack with Lust and Rapid Fire if you can. You can also pre-pot a Potion of Speed before the fight starts, then pop a second one right after it ends. If you're very sweaty, or have an Alchemist off. Professions. Engineering. Engineering is just too good in Wrath, and I really do recommend it. If Hunter is your main, you should have Engineering. The second profession, not as big of a deal. JC is probably the best for second place. It provides good stats and is also flexible in the stats it gives you. But Inscription, Blacksmithing, Tailoring, Alchemy, and Leatherworking all provide some kind of pretty solid buff and are fine if you don't want to do JC. Skinning is also a small buff, but not as good as the other ones. I would say drop Mining or Herbalism. Mining is just HP, and Herbalism is a hot. If Hunter is an ult or something, you can do whatever. But for the mains, I really recommend Engineering and JC or Raiding. What I'm doing, just in case anyone was curious what I'm playing for Wrath, it's obviously not survival. I'm going to be running Marksman and Beast Mastery for leveling, for dungeons, and for raiding. Obviously Wolf Pet is the way to go, but I want to try Devil Sore. I think there may be some opportunities for good numbers as BM with a Devil Sore, depending on the fight. While leveling, Marksman and BM are both good, so it just kind of depends on what I'm feeling at the time. I'll probably level mostly BM. In Original Wrath, I had a pet I camped for weeks to get. Grub Thor. I have no idea why, but I loved that fucking dude. Worms definitely aren't the best pet, but I thought maybe it was just nostalgia that made me like him. So I went and grabbed Grub Thor in the pre-patch and did some grinding with him, and they're actually really good. I forgot Acid Spit is a ranged attack, Since I'm BM, he has charge as well. Charge, 30-yard range with an armor debuff, thunderstomp. Ends up being really good for training through mobs while leveling. I definitely still prefer Wolf or Devil Sword for DPS though. There's something very cathartic for me leveling a hunter's BM. I sit back, relax, kind of zone out, drink heavily, and let my pet do most of the work. One of those things Hunter Jesus placed on this earth for us to enjoy. And it truly is beautiful. Hunter P1 Bis is next. If you enjoyed the video, hit that sub button, bell, like button, Grub Thor is a god button, share button, all that other shit. I appreciate each and every one I get. This channel even has memberships now. You can check them out by clicking the join button right by the sub button. I stream right here on YouTube. I don't know if I'll stream any leveling, but I promise we'll stream some Hunter stuff right after launch. Definitely some heroics. We need Hunter Jesus to help me out with that crossbow. I hope you'll join me. And I hope this video helps some people because holy shit, this take a ton of work and a ton of alcohol. And I still have to edit it. Damn. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching and I will see you all for the next one.